Hi there. Thanks very much for joining us. The dire state of the global economy is triggering strong words from leaders around the world this Saturday. While the next president of the United States was outlining a dramatic financial rescue plan, leaders at the APEC Summit in Peru were vowing to keep pushing for free trade at a time when it might hurt the most. With details of the urgent meeting aimed at stemming the confidence crisis, Ottawa Bureau Chief Jacques Barbeau joins us from Lima tonight. Jacques.
Robin, with the world's economy in trouble, leaders at this APEC summit are making comparisons to the Great Depression, warning that if governments make the wrong decisions, this economic crisis could get even worse. In Peru, the world economic crisis has been kept at bay. The country's emerging economy still growing by close to 10%. But most of the leaders attending the APEC conference are watching their economies stumble. And they're bringing stark warnings about the state of the world's economy.
The world is entering an economic period unlike and potentially as dangerous as anything we have faced since 1929.
Prime Minister Harper told a room full of business leaders this crisis can get worse if governments make the wrong decisions, like they did during the Great Depression.
They erected protectionist barriers in a short-sighted attempt to preserve jobs. These are mistakes the government of Canada of today will not make.
The economic crisis is dominating discussions by APEC leaders. Prime Minister Harper met with U.S. President George Bush, who stressed the need to work together to get out of this mess. For George Bush, this is his final World Summit, and he pleaded with leaders to keep fighting for freer trade.
One of the enduring lessons of the Great Depression is that global protectionism is a path to global economic ruin.
Endorsing that philosophy, Canada signed a free trade deal with Colombia last night.
Now is not the time to become protectionist, and if you really want to protect jobs, then you open up the opportunities for those workers to market their goods and market their services.
To back up their rhetoric, APEC leaders are promising not to impose any new trade barriers for the next 12 months. A promise that, for some countries, may be difficult to keep if the world's economy continues to weaken. Robin?
Okay, so Jacques, that's what's happening inside. Let's talk about what's happening outside of this summit. So far, from what I'm hearing, the protests have been pretty tame.
That's right, Robin. In fact, most of the protests have been aimed at the United States. There is anger here about the banking crisis in the U.S. that has triggered this world economic crisis. Also anger about Guantanamo Bay and the U.S. continued operations there. But for the most part, the protests have been peaceful, and perhaps that's simply a sign that protesters have a hard time getting worked up, knowing that U.S. President George Bush is leaving office in just 2 months. Robin?
Jacques Barbeau in Lima, Peru tonight. Thank you very much for that, Jacques. All right, let's bring in Global National's Paul Johnson in Washington. And Paul, for the man who's taking over from President Bush, it was also all about the economy today.
Robin, Barack Obama says he wants to create 2.5 million jobs over the next couple of years through big investments in infrastructure and renewable energy. It's an ambitious plan that's likely going to overshadow anything the current Congress or president can do about the economy in the meantime.
We must do more to put people back to work and get our economy moving again.
Not since the era of Franklin Roosevelt and the Great Depression has there been so much riding on what a new president can do to turn around the economy. The theme dominated Obama's weekly address on the internet.
We'll put people back to work, rebuilding our crumbling roads and bridges, modernizing schools that are failing our children.
But exactly how he'll pay for that is unclear. His proposed tax hikes on the wealthy may generate less money than expected if the economy continues to sink. Obama himself acknowledged things are likely to get worse before they get better. But one move that did help lift the markets, if only for a day, was news that Obama has chosen Tim Geithner as his Treasury Secretary. He's a highly respected official and signals that Obama may be drawing up an economic strategy based on the political center, not the left, as some had feared. This, as yet a new specter climbed onto the financial pages, the threat of deflation.
everybody freezes. They stop buying, waiting for prices to bottom because they want to get that best deal out there. That just exacerbates the need for stores to cut back, the need for production to cut back, and layoffs.
Well, Barack Obama is getting the job of his dreams. Every indication is that he's getting a nightmare economy to go along with it.
As for the current president, we know he had time for a short chat today with Prime Minister Stephen Harper in Lima, Peru. They shared their concerns about the crisis facing the Detroit automakers, but according to the president's press secretary, they did not talk about a coordinated plan to deal with the problem. Robin?
All right, Paul, we appreciate that. Thanks, Paul.